I'm Vance Bastion, here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins, bringing you this week's Written on the Edge, Season 11, Episode 30 interview. We're joined by Benjamin Feliciano to discuss his novel, Bound for Greatness. So let's get to know our guest. Benjamin Wesley Feliciano is an author, lead singer of the band Younger Than Neil, founder of the Ideology Art Collective, painter, and a conceptual performance artist. His work has been exhibited in Memento Mori Gallery, Blue Tile Gallery, and 40 West Gallery. He hosts a free monthly art club every first Sunday at the Memento Mori Gallery and Tattoo. Benjamin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So it sounds like you live a creative life. What was the
Yeah.
impetus to put pen to paper and actually write novels?
Yeah, I think the transition, and this is a question I think that was in some of the questions you sent to me, but part of moving from poetry to writing novels was realizing that when I wrote my first book of poetry, that it was really hard to convince people to buy a book of poetry. So uh, what that ended up leading to is like, well, maybe people will be more receptive to poetry if it's in lyric form. Ended up starting bands. That was 12 plus years ago at this point, and I've been playing in bands since.
Hmm.
And then in writing, it was like, okay, I always liked writing short stories. I wanted to write a novel. I aspired to write a novel, but until I had set out with like a real plan and an outline and really like set myself to writing a novel, that it hadn't been much more than a couple pages of a short story.
Right, right. All
Yeah.
right. So if I were to see that book over your shoulder, I see the poster back there. If I were to see that on a table in front of you at like a Pride event or a book signing, and I were to say, "Oh my goodness, what's this about?" What would your elevator pitch be?
Bound is a middle grade fiction series about a group of kids that end up capturing spirits in books. And it's sort of a little cheeky way of referring to like the power of books, the power of reading, in a sort of literal sense, but in a fantasy and mystical way as well.
Nice. Now, it is part of a series, correct?
It is. It's the first of what I have so far planned is a trilogy, but I don't
Okay.
want to limit myself to maybe wanting to work more in this world at a future point.
Nice, nice. All right. So, in my reading on it, there's a secret government agency, kids are involved. You've got a bunch of things going on here. What should folks know about it in terms of if they're going to offer it to a young person and say, "Hey, read this"?
Yeah, I think it's a call to a lot of like the kids on bikes media stuff, like Stranger Things or Goosebumps or Spooksville. Again, I'll talk about Spooksville a bunch during this interview because that's like a main like thing I think back to when I was a young reader.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's kids having an adventure in sort of the endless summer vacation feeling of youth and what that's like to inflict a lot of like fantasy and mystery and craziness that happens throughout the story as well.
All right. Does it happen over a summer break?
It does, this first one. Yeah, I think there will be a little bit of school period stuff happening in the second book, but we start with the summer break before high school for the kids.
Okay. And the supernatural that's going on, is it something only kids can see?
It's not. It's actually so the concept of an afflatus is the term that we refer to the spirits as, and an afflatus, the word itself is kind of talks about like inspiration from nothing.
Okay.
And so the commonly used metaphor is putting a harp on a windy mountain and hearing the music that the sounds of the wind passing through the harp makes. So it's
Okay.
about this like ethereal inspiration that comes out of nowhere. And when they capture the spirits in these books, they turn them into fiction. So any monster that's in media, any book that's about a ghost or about a monster would have been originally a spirit that was captured in there, and it changes the fiction of the book itself, rewriting them into something that is no longer real and
Right.
corporeal.
So monsters in fiction have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Has sort of the this concept been around that long of capturing them?
Yes. Yeah, so the implication is in part that like this bureau has been around a very, very long time, an ancient sort of organization that has been dedicated to the process of capturing these things and turning them into fiction, basically.
Okay. And so, final question on this topic is, are the kids new recruits or are they sort of running afoul of the organization?
They are new recruits. There is a connection for Charlie, the main character, via his parents, his birth parents, who he doesn't know at the start of the story. And so it turns out that they were maybe related to this agency, might have worked there. We go into a little bit of what their involvement was kind of into the middle of the book.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to introduce the characters?
Yeah, so we have Charlie is our main character. He is he's recently been put into foster care from a foster home, and he has just two parents and no other kids around him. So he's been used to sort of a more chaotic environment. One of his friends from the foster home is Saeed. We meet him a little bit in the first book, but he shows up a little bit more in the second book as well. Also, possibly as kind of like a romantic element there and figuring out what that feels like for him as he's growing into that
Hmm.
sense of himself. And the other two characters are named Ripley and Caleb. They are kind of just kids from the neighborhood that he meets while practicing skateboarding on his driveway in the front of the yard in a hot summer. And they skate on past, and they've got their Slurpees and their Twizzlers, and they're like, "Hey, who are you? Let's go to the skate park." So he starts with that friendship by meeting them. Yeah, just kind of as one does, making friends seems a lot easier when you're that age. It feels
Cool.
like.
Is this centered in a specific era?
It's I didn't want to have it be current necessarily. I wanted to sort of harken to a time when cell phones maybe were a little bit earlier and not quite such a Deus ex machina for so many other horror movies. You see it that the common trope is like, oh, they have no signal, or they have that's the reason they can't call for
Yeah.
help. But
Right,
I,
right.
I think if I had to picture, he's got like one of those brick Nokias that has Snake on it, and that's going to limit some of the tech influence of that. So it's kind of like my childhood ish, the early 2000s, mid to late 90s, but it's still set in Denver. It's still set in like a somewhat modern time.
Okay, cool. Baz, do you
Yeah.
have questions?
Yeah, no, I was just, you actually asked the one I was thinking was what era, because it has, from the way he's describing it, it sounds very nostalgic, like, a Goonies, it's along those lines,
Mm-hmm.
which there is a huge market for. I mean, you just look at YouTube with the reactions. They love a good kids on a bike kind of adventure. I also was noting that the artwork for the book kind of reminds me of that Pulp Fiction-y kind of Nancy Drew Hardy Boys mystery kind of thing,
Yes.
so that's kind of what I was getting from it. And I didn't know if that was intentional until you started talking about the story. Can you
Very much
explain a
so.
little bit of about the cover and what the imagery there is trying to evoke to draw in these readers?
Yeah, yeah. So definitely read a bunch of Nancy Drew, definitely been a bunch of Hardy Boys, definitely read all sorts of that type of youth fiction when I was growing up. The picture itself is of the first spirit that they encounter in the book, and it's this big floating eyeball that seems to have its own gravitational pull and it's pulling up junk and spinning around and making a little hurricane, and it's chasing them through a parking garage, and that's kind of where they end up. And yeah, this is the first encounter that they have, and this is
Gotcha.
sort of the back view of Charlie that we have.
Gotcha.
Love it.
But the artist that did this actually is his name is Lee McLeod, and he did the covers for the Spooksville series. I
I
don't know if
was
that rings a
Ah,
bell.
okay.
I was hoping you were going to bring that up. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So Spooksville was Christopher Pike's like younger horror, like youth horror. He had all of his like kind of teen slasher novels as well, and the big creepy fonts on the front, and the stories about like murder and teen drama. But he also had like a slightly like younger aged series called Spooksville that I read a lot of. It was again very Goonies, very kids on bikes, adventures with ghosts and monsters and spirits, and the covers were always so striking. There were these airbrush paintings. I think if you think back to like Goosebumps covers as well, you're kind of getting the similar vibe. And so I, yeah, I wanted to kind of give an homage to not only like an author that meant a lot to me when I was younger, but to a artist as well. And I I reached out to him via a defunct email on his website that sent back an error message.
Oh
And
no.
then I was like, I could have given up there, but I tracked down a gallery that he had some of his paintings in. And I
Oh.
was like, would you be comfortable giving me his contact information? And they said yes. He was like, wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time. I'm like a oil painting landscape artist now. I haven't worked in airbrush since the 80s. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, are you willing to do this? And he was like, yes. We had like a back and forth. And he ended up doing this. This is actually an oil painting, and I bought it from him. So let me
Wow.
grab that real quick. Uh, he did an oil painting
Oh wow.
Ah,
that I'm just going to put headphones back on, that I asked if I would be able to buy the original version of that. So this
Oh
is
wow.
his, he mailed this to me. It's got his little signature on the back and stuff, but this
oh,
is a Lee McLeod Illustrations original, with its father up there, I guess. um, yeah, that's kind of the story around that.
That's awesome. And way to you for using your own gallery background to figure out how to track him down.
Yes, I assumed. I mean, it's. I think any artist is somewhat willing to entertain the idea of getting paid to make art. So
yeah. Something about
Wonderful.
bills and
yeah,
living,
you know,
yeah, tends to drive that.
yeah. Unless you're really, really deeply like concerned about being a sellout, but then it's like, well, I don't know. I love to eat, so if that makes me a sellout.
Hey, what
So
are you gonna do?
what grade are the kids in this? I mean, what are we talking about here?
This is them in the summer vacation before their freshman year of high school, and
Oh,
so
okay.
they're already, they've got their anxieties about being called fishies, and all of their like their older siblings are already teasing them about like kind of that intro to like that grander social scale that is high school.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's all that trepidation feeding the kids as well. They're on edge about what's coming. It's all going to be new and yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then you throw in some encounters with giant eyeballs, and that's sort of what we're talking about.
Nice.
Nice.
So, did your love of poetry and epic poetry and sort of the rhythm of words make it into this, or did you truly go, nope, I'm going prose?
I think there is a little bit of that showing up in some of the dream segments, because dreams play a role in this story as well.
Okay.
Things where that are not necessarily prophetic, but maybe metaphoric and symbolic to the characters, and serve as a greater narrative piece to him kind of uncovering some of his past that he's unaware of about his parents.
Okay. Nice.
But there is some poetics to that. I think I don't think there's any specific. I'd have to think about it, but I don't think there's any poetry in the book so far.
Okay. Fair enough. Are you sharing ideas for the future? Because obviously the kids are going to move to high school at some point.
Yeah. So the second book is 90% outlined at this moment. I was just looking over that and thinking I need to finish it. So, and then the third book, I have about a paragraph of what I know is going to happen in there. So I start usually when I first started this process, I started with like just a blob of text that was about these three books, kind of split that down, broke that into an outline, and then I find that the outlining process takes so much longer than the actual writing process, because once I'm set to the writing, I'm off to the races. But the actual like breakdown of like, here's what happens, here's kind of some of the snippets of the dialogue that I want to happen, the scenes that I expect will occur. Um, and I might have gotten off track and forgot the question. I'm sorry.
I was just asking about your plans for the future of the series.
Yes, future of the series. Yeah, they. I think Charlie's going to distance himself a little bit from his friends, have some of his own adventures, and then have a your hero's journey of returning back to that and reconnecting and hopefully uncovering the truth of his parents and what happened to them and why he can't seem to remember them.
Oh, interesting. So this is far future, and it's perfectly valid for you to say you don't have an answer or you don't want to talk about it. Do you envision him as an adult working for the organization in the future? Yeah, sort of as your
Ah,
readers grow up, are you going to grow up the series with them?
yes, I hope to do a little bit of that, because I remember personally, and I will temper my language, but I am not a fan of J.K. Rowling for non-literary reasons.
Hmm.
But I remember very distinctly the feeling of growing up with those characters as I
Yeah.
was reading them and as they were being released. It was like, there was something really special about that.
Hmm.
Uh, that wasn't really replicated in any other book series that I remember reading. It was so timed perfectly to kind of the age that I was passing through, and I would love to evoke that sort of feeling for a reader as well. Um, will I necessarily be writing all the way into his far future when he's an adult? Maybe, maybe not, but I do at least see that he is doing work with them at this time, and that maybe some of that bleeds into a future short story or offshoot. Yeah, maybe if Netflix comes up with a show, then I will.
Well, there, yeah,
Yeah, we
exactly.
gotta have the extended adventures.
So is the organization sort of stealth like the Telemasca in Anne Rice's universe? Are they like, do they exist but no one really knows about them unless you know about them, kind of thing? Or how does that whole part of it
Yeah,
play?
there is a function of this bureau that involves memory and involves that sort of mystery around them, but mostly they accomplish their work by being they just sound really boring. They just sound like a non-entity. They're called the Bureau of Bookbinding, and it doesn't sound like the type of thing that anyone would build conspiracy theories around. It just sounds like a boring government agency. So
Basket
they
weaving 101.
yeah, they fly under the radar with that. But then there's also an in-universe explanation for why people that used to work for them don't seem to remember them, and people that don't know about them don't know about them.
Nice.
Okay,
All
love
right.
that.
So we should mention to folks that it is releasing August 25th, and
Correct.
we encourage people to go to rebelsatoripress.com and buy it right from the publisher as opposed to a big box store. But
Yes,
if you have
please.
no other option, go big box because this is definitely a book you want to pick up. All right, Benjamin, is there anything else about Bound for Greatness or any of your other works that you want to talk about that we didn't think to ask?
Um, no, nothing comes to mind. I'm excited to have it out there in the world. I think I started this in 2020, and it's been 5 years from outline to writing to trying to get an agent and failing to get an agent to finding an independent publisher
Yep.
and eventually getting that out. So it's been a journey, but yeah, I'm very excited about this.
Awesome. All right, are you ready for our get to know you questions?
Let's do it.
Take it away, boss.
Okay, so before we get to that, though, let's take a moment to remind you to feed the algorithm monster. We're talking about monsters here. So, feed the algorithm monster, do all the things, hype the video. If you want to support us, because there are costs involved with us keeping this project going, even though we're in our 11th year of weekly podcast episodes, bringing content creators to our community and our allies. So, definitely consider supporting us financially. You can do it by one of three ways. You can go to patreon.com/rope podcast and do a monthly donation. There are three levels up there. Or you can buy individual reaction episodes that I do with Albert, who is a queer author living in Mexico, who has not been exposed to a lot of Western media, queer media. So we do a lot of reactions, and boy, did we catch hell for heated rivalry and our perspective on it. So if you want to watch some of that drama, all of that is up there. There you can also go to buymeacoffee.com/rope podcast, and you can check that out. You can do a one-time donation, throw us whatever couch change you find. We greatly appreciate it. Every little bit helps. And finally, you can do it for less than $1 a month by joining our memberships here on YouTube. So by doing that, you help us with trying to keep the server costs and everything that we use to create this stuff, and to bring you these content creators. So, and we humbly thank you for it. So, with all of that out of the way, let's get into the weeds. What book, film, or piece of art has had the biggest influence on your writing style?
Yeah, I was just talking about this with a friend because I found that they had a copy of it. But it's got to be The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor
Mm,
Coleridge. I am a sucker for nautical imagery. I'm constantly putting lighthouses and boats and anchors and all sorts of things. I'm obsessed with it. I love the humility that comes from the awe of the ocean, the power of it, and the audacity of humankind to traverse that. In spite of all that, it's crazy to imagine that people were doing this on wooden boats. I'm obsessed.
Don't you live in Denver?
I know, and I make trips to
There are
California as often as
tons
I
of
can.
lighthouses there.
No, any opportunity I have to see a lighthouse while traveling, I try to make that. There's a very important lighthouse in South Korea that's in the book that I hope to one day write off as a tax expense to go visit in
Well,
person.
there you go. Yeah.
Nice.
And
Yes.
it's related to research for the book. So,
Right. Right. Exactly. All right. Well, what fictional or historical character would you invite to march with you at a pride parade?
I forgot to answer this one in my notes. I'm sorry. So now I'm in trouble. Who I just was actually part of the Pride Parade in Denver. The Dykes on Bikes group that opens up the parade,
Hmm.
they were short staffed, and so they reached out to Dead Name Moto, which is the trans and queer motorcycle club that I ride with sometimes. And I hopped on my hot pink Vespa and I joined them, and we revved and honked our way all the way through the parade. So I I'm trying to think of a historical figure. I would just say I would love to ride with Dykes on Bikes again. That was rad.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
Yes.
Love that. Love that. If you ever get a chance, and this is just a plug from my days living in the Bay Area, if you ever go to San Francisco Pride, you must go because the Dykes on Bikes contingent is at least 15 minutes long.
Yep.
Awesome. That's great.
It's massive. The
I
whole
did
parade.
inhale a lot of two-stroke oil engine or engine oil that whole time. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, it's wild. The parade itself goes on for 8 hours, so gives you the
awesome.
idea. Yeah. All right. If you or your protagonist had to survive a gay bar karaoke night, well, I guess your kids are a little young, so maybe. What song would you or they belt out?
So I wrote in my notes that I'm having trouble picturing Charlie doing karaoke because I personally am a karaoke hater. But he's cooler than I am, so I'm like to imagine that he's got a foster dad with good taste in music that is in no way a self-insert. So maybe he would do "Look Sharp" by Joe Jackson.
Ooh.
Okay. All right. All right. Excellent callback. Okay. What's a place, real or imagined, that feels like home to you and why?
Yeah, I thought about this one a lot. I am going to go with the stage, just as a performer. It's kind of come to my attention that like it doesn't really matter if I'm in front of three people that show up to a bar show in a city that we don't normally play, or if we're playing at a festival in front of thousands of people. I just love like the moments of being on stage, seeing people singing along, seeing people dancing, looking and making eye contact in front of my guitarist solo, and being like, "Oh, you got that great," or "Uh-oh, we messed that up and now we're sort of all collectively making up for the rhythm that we lost there," or whatever happens, because the show must go on. But I just love being on stage. It's I love being a lead singer and I love performing.
Excellent. Okay. What's the strangest or most unexpected place you've ever found an inspiration for a work of yours?
Yeah, almost all of my inspiration, and this does feel like cheating, but almost all of my inspiration comes from dreams. I have very vivid dreams. I spent a lot of time in my 20s learning how to lucid dream, and I don't really practice doing that much anymore, but still find that I have really vivid and inspiring dreams. I woke up from a dream and wrote down the initial blob that became this book and this series.
Nice.
It was the day after I was feeling kind of low about the sales of my second book, and I had a friend reached out and was like, "Hey, I read it. I thought it was lovely. Here's, I think I can see the growth between your first book and your second book." Just like an effusively kind letter that I like. I just fell into a very peaceful sleep that night and woke up and had this idea, and that's why the character is named Charlie after my friend Charles.
Aw. Love
Love
that.
that. Uh-huh. All right. Which themes or motifs do you find yourself returning to again and again in your work?
Again, I'm gonna have to say nautical imagery. I'm currently reading Moby Dick with my best friend. We're going through that together, and it's crazy how so much of that has like really incredible prose and then like chapters upon chapters of whale facts. It is for sure one of the greatest books ever written. Obviously, not going to take anything away from Herman Melville, but boy, he has a very precise knowledge and interest in the facets of the shape of fins and the way that the spouts come out. It's great. But
Love
yeah,
it.
again, the ocean. Love the ocean.
Okay. Okay. Well, what's a piece of LGBTQ plus culture, music, film, art, or history that never fails to inspire you?
Yeah, Miranda July's Cajillionaire is a movie I really enjoyed recently. Her last book, All Fours, was great as well. It goes into sort of it's semi-autobiographical, fictionalized. There are bits and pieces, I'm assuming, that are true or not, but it's about her journey through like non-monogamy and her experiences with opening herself up to queerness and bisexuality and how that works for her. Yeah, loved All Fours, loved Cajillionaire. She's just such a weirdo, and I love her writing. But I'm a Cheerleader is a classic. I know it's cliche. I'm also going to say Rent. I was a theater kid in high school. I'm sorry. Rainbow Boys was a book by Alex Sanchez that my sister made me read as a closeted, internalized homophobia Texas Southern Baptist Christian high schooler. Yeah,
Oh,
and
you burst through that closet door.
yeah, had a journey. It was youth pastor or graphic designer, and I went this way. So, um, but yeah, no, it helped me. I think Rainbow Boys was a big one where it just sort of there was this normalization. I remember very specifically a normalization of the sensation that the character described about kissing a boy and how it felt just the same as when he had kissed a woman and a girl, and so he goes through that like it was something so awful and gross and scary in his head, and then it was so normal and right, and it just felt like the right thing, and so that for me was like, oh, okay, like I'm not ready to process this yet, but it will go into the storage, and then
Right.
when I move to Colorado in a couple years, I'll figure it out.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Love that. Well, you made it through our list. Bravo.
Thank you.
So, you are about to release your book. Do you have other planned appearances or interviews that people should know about? Do you want to drop some dates and places?
Sure. Yeah. My band's second full-length album is called Make It Out Alive, and it's coming out on September 26th. So September's kind of a big month.
Nice.
I shot and directed a music video for one of our songs called Sutpin's Harvest, which I didn't write that one. Our drummer wrote that, and I think it's a reference to Dostoevsky or something. He's my drummer is also a very literary, maybe more so than me. He's an English teacher, but uh, yeah, you can find our music video for Sutpin's Harvest. We filmed it at a laser tag arena. It was a great time. And you can find out more via our link tree, which is linktr.ee/younger than Neil, or on Instagram at YTN_official. Work in progress. Again, I'm working on the sequel to Bound. I haven't figured out a title yet. But yeah, working on that. Again, about 90% outlined, ready to start the writing process and really invest in lavender lattes at the cafe while I spend hours of my weekends there working on it.
And in addition to the band's Instagram, you have a website that is also a springboard for all of your projects, benfeliciano.art, correct?
Correct. Thank you for dropping that. My best friend made that as a birthday gift, so I appreciate
That's
the
awesome.
having a website. Yeah, in-person appearances. I don't know if I'm skipping ahead, but the next place I'll be at is a queer literary fest called Lavender Lit Fest in Longmont, Colorado, on September 19th, where I will be hosting a workshop 2 p.m. to 3:15 p.m. called "Finish It," like Mortal Kombat, writing for the disorganized writer. It's about finishing your book, what that process looks like from again start to finish. Registration is free, or sorry, admission is free, but registration is required, and you can do so on butterscotchstudios.com/lavenderlitfest.
Nice.
You mentioned it at the top, but I will also just again say that I host a free monthly art club at a gallery in Lakewood, Colorado called Memento Mori Gallery. It's every first Sunday, 6:15 to 8 p.m. And bring your own supplies and come meet some other nerds. And Art Club Denver on Instagram is where you can find out more information.
Awesome.
You know, that well, rabbit hole I've fallen into now that you brought that up is I don't know if you've ever watched on YouTube the artists who do acrylic paints and they do like landscapes and all that kind of stuff. And they use really unusual things and not just standard paintbrushes and stuff. And it's really fascinating to watch how they can evoke this impressionistic style using like a kitchen sponge or a bunch of Q-tips that are bound together. And, you know, it's really fascinating to watch it come alive. So I kind of like that whole idea because, I mean, at least from a lay person who, you know, I can hold my own in the art world, but it gives you the opportunity to look at it and go, you know, watching that, I think I could do that. I think I could really work towards that. And I think that that's one of the things, especially in this day and age where we're constantly bombarded with a bunch of crap that we don't really want to deal with, using art to decompress and to express and allow that passion to come out in another way can be so therapeutic. And so I commend you for doing that workshop kind of thing because I think if more people did things like that, they wouldn't feel quite so anxiety ridden.
Mhm.
You know, and the nice thing about it is you can have those kind of art communities where you don't necessarily feel like you're in it by yourself. You know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, there's a social aspect to it. So
Yeah.
bravo for doing that because I think it's great. Yeah, you should definitely, if you haven't watched any of them, you should definitely watch them because some of them are
Yeah.
really quite fascinating there. And they do it like in a half hour. You're like, how the fuck did you pull that off in a half hour? Yeah. So
I'll be
anyway,
asking for a link afterwards for sure. I
okay.
want some
Okay.
inspo there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can tangent for a moment, I think that one of the common criticisms of performance art is like, oh, I could do that,
Mhm.
or even of abstract art or
Hmm.
of more. God, I'm forgetting my art terms, but art school dropout. Sorry. Um, but even so my response to that is never like defensiveness. It's always like, okay, so do it.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
worst case scenario, what this art that you don't consider art accomplished is that it brought more art into the world by making you make art in response to it. So
Yeah.
it's still a success in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. I
if
agree.
if if you're mad that Duchamp submitted a urinal, then go make something better. If you're mad that like yeah, it's if you're mad that someone did they covered themselves in paint and rolled around on a canvas and you think that's not art, well then please make something better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you know, there's mixed media, there's all kinds of ways to get involved. So if you're not really a painter, there are other ways to do those things and to express yourself, you know, collage works and whatever, you know,
Absolutely.
just really, really dive into it and
Just make stuff.
just allow yourself to express it in ways that you may not have even considered. Yeah. So I love the rabbit holes on YouTube for those kinds of things because it is definitely a Bob Ross kind of feeling to it all. But you know, like I said, if it gives you the impression that, hey, I've got a kitchen sponge, so you know,
Do it.
you know what I
Do it.
mean?
Do
Yeah,
it.
exactly, exactly. And all the rabbit hole that I'm dying on, my husband and I, are the partners painting each other date nights.
So funny.
Lord,
So
those are
funny.
so good. Oh my God,
It's
there have been times
because
we've
one
been in.
person is like amazing and then the other one's always like
And
or
it's
a
so fucking
horrible stick
brilliant.
figure. It's great. It's a blast.
If
I love
anything,
those.
just watching them just lightens your mood.
It's like I guess I could do that.
Yeah, but it's great because you know these couples are showing a way that couples could do a date night, do something fun, and do so. And I'm sorry, but even the goofy ones, I would still put them up because I think that if anything makes you laugh, if you're walking down the hallway and it's up there, you know, it'll brighten your day. You know
Oh yeah.
you know, what's the harm in it all? You know, do
There's
it.
an old acrylic sip and paint picture of a cat that is insane looking that one of my partners has up in their apartment. So
Yeah,
any excuse. I am constantly in a state of shaking my friends by their shoulders and saying, make some art, do something, you're
yeah, do
talented.
something. Yeah, yeah. Love that. Love that.
Nice.
Bravo.
I was just going to ask if you had any final words of wisdom, but that sounded like a good one.
Yes, make some art. Do something.
Love it. All right, fans and friends, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Benjamin Feliciano for joining us. Benjamin, thank you so much. And again, thank you for your time today. I know it's the middle of the day for you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great. I would be remiss if I didn't introduce my coworker. His name is Toast.
Hi, Toast.
He's a constant companion. So
Yay.
that's the cat tax.
Love it.
I'd show you mine, but she's napping now. She was crying earlier. I'm thinking, oh, great, this is going to appear on this show. My cat wailing in the background. But yeah, and I just told Vance that yesterday or last week we were doing a reaction, and she was laying here completely calm the whole time. Normally, she's Norma Desmond. She's got to be front and center on the camera. But she was laying here all the time. And then just towards the end of our reaction, she just leaned up and bit my monitor and created a crease across the whole thing. And I'm like,
thankfully, Toast has not done that to my monitor. But
yeah,
wow,
yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for my new one to arrive.
Gotcha.
Well, on that happy
Anyways,
moment,
yeah.
we at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators and their pets. If you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Our show was produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our links, disclaimers, social media, and our listen stations, sign up as a guest at www.roguepodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Ciao for now.
Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.